Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's State Spotlight webinar focused on registered teacher apprenticeships in action. Settle in, you're in for a treat as we welcome state leaders and practitioners who are designing and scaling high quality teacher registered apprenticeship programs to strengthen the teacher pipeline in their respective states. My name is Carla Warren, and I'm a senior partner with the National Center for Grow Your Own, and I have the privilege of moderating today's session. I'd like to give a quick announcement as we get started today. Please plan to join us for our next scheduled webinar on January 13th, where we will hear insights from Alaska, North Dakota, and Virginia, who are leading the nation in developing principal registered apprenticeship programs. And we will host that webinar at 3 p.m. on January 13th. You'll see the link in the chat. So let's kick off today. Before we get started with our presentations, I'd like to share with you just a little bit about our organization, the National Center for Grow Your Own. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that provides technical assistance to state education leaders, local education leaders, and educator preparation providers who are interested in launching or expanding Grow Your Own pathways or registered apprenticeships in teaching for aspiring educators. These programs are able to address educator shortages while improving quality and retention. Our founder, David Donaldson, served as the lead author to the U.S. Department of Labor to get the teacher occupation eligible for registered apprenticeships, and then launched the first teacher registered apprenticeship program while with the Tennessee Department of Education. Since then, he has also played a role in registering the K-12 principal occupation and the lead teacher occupation. Our team is proud to serve as the first and largest intermediary for the K-12 educator apprenticeships in the nation. It's our mission to create a world where one can become a teacher for free and get paid to do so. Please join me in welcoming our presenters today. Grant Lipinski and Ryan Salcido are representing the Arizona Department of Education, and Jason Keys representing the Maryland State Department of Education. In just a few years, teacher registered apprenticeships has shifted from scattered pilots across the country to a national movement. Districts are hiring apprentices into paid roles, universities are aligning coursework, and states are standardizing quality and reporting. Registrations continue to rise as programs formalize mentor development, strengthen school EPP partnerships, and use data to drive placement and progression. Importantly, states are doing this with diversified funding. State dollars, WIOA dollars, Perkins, philanthropy, and in some cases, federal apprenticeship funds like state apprenticeship expansion funds. So the work isn't dependent on one funding source. Arizona and Maryland offer contrasting models, but together they illustrate two viable routes to scale, both to grow registrations and to improve quality. We're going to use these framing themes today to ground us as we begin to look at the programs that were registered in Maryland and Arizona. As we get started, take a moment and just do some self-reflection on where you are in your apprenticeship journey. Are you just getting started? Or is your program in development? Is it up and running? Are you scaling up? Or are you a state leader who has a mature program? As we move through the presentations today, I invite you to think about your next steps and what challenges you're facing now and use that to craft some questions so we can pick the brains of our state leaders today on our webinar. So as we get started, I hope by the end of the session you have the opportunity to engage with state leaders, to ask questions, surface lessons learned, and consider how these approaches can inform your own teacher registered apprenticeship strategies in your states. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Grant Lipinski and Ryan Salcido from the Arizona Department of Education. They are leading the work in their state around district EPP partnerships and teacher registered apprenticeships. And today they're going to share for us how they have operationalized the earn and learn model in their state, taking those pathways to scale, what's working, what's next, and practical lessons that other states can use. So welcome, Grant and Ryan. I'll turn this presentation over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carla and team. We're happy to be here and share some lessons. Um, we in Arizona certainly have leveraged the webinar and the resources and everyone that has presented prior to help us in our operation of the program. So just want to thank everyone for that really quick. But yeah, just a little bit about myself, and then I'll kick it over to Ryan. I've been in education for about 5 years, both in Arizona and then abroad a little bit. Um, been working with the Arizona Department of Education for a little over a year now, where my role has been completely focused on designing and implementing the Arizona Teacher Registered Apprenticeship Program. And I will kick it over to Ryan.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Salcido. Like Grant mentioned, I've been with the Department of Education since June of this year, as I came over after finishing up my teaching for 12 years in the classroom from everywhere between the elementary grades up to high school. Just really excited to be a part of this program here at ADE and help foster the growth of our apprenticeship program here that was started by Grant, and we've sort of evolved it over the last couple months. So really excited to be here with everyone and present on what we've been working on here in Arizona.
All right, so just a little bit of background on where we're at and how we got to where we are now. As I kind of alluded to, we like to say we're late but not last. We have certainly pulled a lot of resources from other states who have posted on websites and things like that, presented in webinars. So we just want to again give everyone here a quick shout out. Would not have been able to do it without all the resources available through the network. So that's been really crucial in doing the good work. We do have our partnership with the Office of Apprenticeship through the Department of Economic Security here in Arizona. That's how we kind of got through and registered. And we registered in February of this past year. And since then, we've been looking for employer partners to hop on board and get apprentices in classrooms. In that search for our initial sort of pilot partners, we kind of thought of three areas, one being a good, already kind of established post-bac program where we have partnered with Arizona Teacher Residency to kind of leverage their already existing systems there. And then two pre-bac programs, one that has a really good history of CTE programs, and the other with really good Ed Rising sort of Ed Professions programs. So we wanted to really kind of target those three types of areas to expand and get those employers on board.
Yeah, and the next part of our journey was trying to identify funding, which we were able to through our partnership with the Office of Apprenticeship, with the Maricopa County Workforce Development Boards, which all of our counties here in Arizona have their own workforce board, and essentially, their focus is to drive the workforce in each county, and specifically, one of their biggest targets is apprenticeship. So they had some leftover funding for us to sort of utilize this year in the excess of $1.5 million, which we've sort of factored in about $15,000 per apprentice, with the baseline part of that being their RTI, and then their journey worker stipends. And then after that, we're able to provide a substantial amount of support funds to our apprentices. So things like dependent care, things like, disability accommodations, as well as work attire, work materials, and things like that. So that's sort of how we're currently funding. We have a couple other applications out there and some opportunities coming up that we're looking forward to. But that's kind of how we're operating right now, is strictly through our Maricopa County Workforce Board. Once we're able to secure that funding, we sort of launched the program and reached out to a lot of different superintendents and HR directors in the Valley, and then partnered up with Craft Education to develop our learning management system for quality control of our apprentices, working on their evaluation of their competencies throughout their program. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're just currently we're always working on trying to secure that future funding post June 2026. That's our goal. So yeah, that's kind of where we've journeyed through in the last couple months of our program. And then, so right now, the design, sort of the foundation of our program is that we are a state-sponsored program. So us here at ADE, we look at ourselves as the caretakers of the registered apprenticeship for all teachers, or for K-12 teaching, in Arizona. So we like to say that we built the car, but we put the LEAs in the driver's seat. So we have developed sort of the requirements, the standards, the practices, the way that things should be operated. And then we allow the LEAs to sort of decide how best to make it work within their LEA. And the reason is because Arizona has so much local control. What works in one district and across the street within the same city is not going to work in that district. Likewise, we do have a lot of public charters here in Arizona as well. So trying to say what's going to work for one school district may not work for another. One may be able to employ 10 apprentices, and another may be able to employ maybe one. So it just really depends on what works best for them. Arizona does have a great deal of rural communities as well. So what works best in the city may not work out in the rural counties. So just being very mindful of allowing each LEA to make their own decisions. And on top of that, making sure that they're allowed to make their own decision with their RTI partner. So some of our programs are partnering with large universities, and some of them are partnering with small community colleges because those community colleges may have more options in terms of their delivery model as well as their their funding sources.
And something we like to do is leverage the data that our team collects. Ryan and I are both part of the educator recruitment and retention team. And in the team's work, they collect a lot of data about the teacher workforce as it is, being the numbers related to teacher attrition and retention, as well as we send out an annual leaver survey for every teacher who has left the classroom. And I'll get into those reports a little bit. So these data tables allow us to really kind of drive our conversations with potential employers. Is there anything on the next slide there, Carla? Oh, let me just share my screen. Oh, I have it up on a separate window, Carla, if you can unshare, and then I'd be happy to share.
Okay, happy to do that.
Sorry, I don't know how that didn't make it into the final presentation. That is our fault.
Okay,
But I got it
excellent.
ready.
Make sure that you can share.
All right, how's that?
That works.
Perfect. So this is our teacher attrition and retention data table. And let me just kind of blow that up here. This is from our teacher input application that every LEA is meant to fill out every October. So in a few weeks, months here, we'll have an updated data table for this past year. But what this does is it tracks all certified teaching positions in the state year in and year out. And we can track how many teachers have appeared in the previous teacher input application and how many have dropped from that previous year to this year. So we can see from the data we collect, roughly 9,000 of the teachers in Arizona that were present in the previous school year were no longer present in this school year, out of the roughly 59,000 total positions, which gives us the attrition rate of about 15.24%. What we found really staggering is that of those 9,000 teachers who left the classroom, about 38,000 of them were in their years 0 to 4 in the profession. And that's something we really thought the apprenticeship model could own in on. Also, something that's really cool about this data is we could sort it by county and even specific LEA or charter. So when we go into meetings with potential employer partners, we can pull up their specific data and see what their area of need is and how the apprenticeship model can kind of best fit into what they're doing. The second set of data that we collect, okay, that's sharing, is something we call the leaver survey. So of those 9,000 that leave the classroom, we send out a survey. asking them essentially, why did you decide to leave the classroom? And these are the most influential factors. Again, we use this data to kind of design and inform the apprenticeship program and our presentations to potential employer partners and workforce boards. We see the top reasons being burnout, wanting a higher salary, personal reasons. And then as we get into some still very influential factors, we see student behavior, discipline problem, not feeling respected. And we feel the apprenticeship model can tackle a lot of these issues as it really owns in on the core issues of a need for more preparation um, and more mentorship on site, more support at your specific site. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing there, Carla, if you want to bring
Okay,
that back up.
I will reshare.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, and so through this process of sort of implementing the apprenticeship program here in Arizona, we've, Grant did a really wonderful job of when we launched the program of making sure that we had manuals there, for the LEAs, for the EPPs, as well as for our apprentices, and relying heavily on those manuals and any documentation, communication that we have with LEAs or communication that we have with EPPs, and making sure that we're double checking those because we feel that the program integrity as well as the quality control that we can have here within our program will allow us to continue to seek that future funding. Allowing future partners to see not just the standard that we set for ourselves, but also that we're holding ourselves to that standard is incredibly important. Um, and another important piece of this is just making sure that there's a constant communication between those LEA and EPP partners, documenting all of those emails, documenting all of those moments of contact, because we have, experienced moments in the past where we thought that one partner was communicating with another partner and a couple weeks goes by and turns out there was no communication or, that one form is supposed to be filled out. Maybe another partner thought that they were doing it, and what ended up happening is nothing actually got done and a couple weeks was wasted. So making sure that we're communicating and that we, as again, we built the car, we put them in the driver's seat, but actually making sure that they're driving forward together, right? That they're working together is incredibly important. And then I would say the final thing that we've learned so far is really making sure that we're building our relationships with our financial departments, especially here at ADE. It's such a huge entity and there's so many moving parts that we need to make sure that every single person that's going to be involved in this project, down to anyone that's handling our invoices, anyone that's going to be building contracts, anyone that's going to be paying out checks, that all those people are involved. And so we decided to bring those people to the table well in advance. I would say months before we actually started the contract development. Just because making sure those people are aware and that they're not caught off guard because this is such a huge project and there's so many moving parts that it's important that everyone is involved.
Yeah, and just piggybacking off that, communication internally and externally is really key. And in these meetings with potential employer partners, it's really identifying together who we can speak to next to kind of keep the ball rolling. Um, Too often, I think, in some meetings, if you don't do that, things will just fall flat and progress won't be made. Whereas if you make it a point in these meetings to identify, okay, who exactly are you going to bring this to? Uh, whose attention are you going to bring this to try to keep moving the work forward? And doing that work with the potential employer partners we found is vital. Another thing not to underestimate is media attention. We had a press release that really blew up interest for the program. I mean, Ryan's done a great job of creating an online intake form for information requests. And the numbers before and after the press release are staggering. I mean, at the month that the uh, media announcement was made, there were over 200 info requests just in a single month. So being sure to hit on those avenues as well, and then just getting in the rooms with the right people. I think a lot of us, at least in ADE, come from an education first background, and knowing how to adapt presentations and the way you're speaking into more of a workforce kind of economic uh, sort of vocabulary is really important. It's a skill in and of itself. So a presentation that we would give to an LEA may not be the same presentation that Ryan and I would give to a local workforce board, and really identifying the different ways to communicate and what's important to those two different audiences um, is key to moving the work forward, we think.
Yeah, and so where we are right now is we have 12 LEAs currently, as a part of our program, as well as three more that are in process. I would say that those numbers are fluctuating. It seems like every week because we get one more person that's interested, or we get another contract that's approved, or things like that. Currently, we're looking at five EPPs that we partner with. And 40 apprentices in total, with I think that the most recent talks that we had is that we're looking around probably 60 apprentices by the end of this school year, which is great. And they all vary between paraprofessionals, classified staff, post-bac students, as well as recent high school graduates. So they're sort of all over the place in terms of where they came from and where they're starting the apprenticeship program, which is wonderful. That's what we want to see. We want to see LEAs sort of taking advantage of the flexibility of the program. We've been hosting monthly virtual information sessions, so it depends on the month, but usually we host two per month. During the day they're virtual. We just basically do an all call to everyone that's in Maricopa County, to all the superintendents and HR directors and things like that, and we just go over the program, all the things that it entails, the responsibilities, the benefits of the program. And every time that we've had one of those information sessions, we've come away with at least two new partners, which has been wonderful. So every single month, I think we've been growing about two new partners, which is great. Um, in terms of assistance, we've been hosting monthly community practice meetings with all of our partners and essentially going over all the things that are working, all the things that may need to be addressed, and some best practices on implementing the program. And then I would say probably the biggest part of our implementation so far has been our backwards design. When we got the funding for the program, we looked at all the reporting requirements and all of the things and opportunities that the finances provided us. And then we went backwards and designed our own sort of reporting and how we invoice and how we process payments and all those things. We kind of went back to the drawing board and say, okay, this is what's needed of us at the end of this month. So we need to timeline backwards and design our processes so that way, one, they're efficient, but also they're really good at maintaining quality control and really evaluating the entire program. Yeah, and then here's our information for anyone that would like I believe they're sending out the PDF, right, Carla, at the end today.
Correct.
So all those hyperlinks will work for you. You can check out our website as well as our apprenticeship inbox. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we can touch base on the program.
Great. Thank you, Grant and Ryan. And we will have this webinar posted on our website at the end of the presentation. We'll post the link to our website, ncgyo.org, where you can find this webinar and other webinars that we have posted. And I believe the Q&A is empty right now. I believe we answered the one question that was in there. As we move through the presentations, please feel free to put any questions you have for either our colleagues in Arizona or a colleague in Maryland into the Q&A, and we'll make sure that we address those as we move forward. So thank you so much, Ryan and Grant. Stick around here and we'll see if we have any additional questions for you. And so we're going to move on and welcome Jason Keys from the Maryland State Department of Education. Jason is a key leader in standing up Maryland's teacher registered apprenticeship program. And he's going to share how Maryland is weaving apprenticeship into licensure and district strategy, district talent strategy. And again, lessons learned, which when I started, I was looking for lessons learned and have paid that forward as so many others of you have done across the nation. And that's how we continue to learn together. So, Jason, I'll turn it over to you, and thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invite, and thanks to everybody, and thanks to some of my Maryland colleagues. I see Sarah Lorick and some other people on the call, so it's good to see you on here. So, my overall question is, how do you get EPPs on board with your new registered apprenticeship program when you don't promise them any money or people? Right? And we seem to have kind of cracked that code to the point where I'm also getting emails every single day, every time there's a press announcement out there that someone else wants to come on board. So I'm going to walk you through our very, very nascent uh, registered apprenticeship program. In fact, we're having our first joint apprenticeship and training council meeting in 34 minutes. That's how new it is. So with that, we can go to the next slide. Okay, and I work at the Division of Educator Effectiveness. My job is everything educator development from hiring to retiring. So registered apprenticeships, induction, continuing professional development, national board certification, all of that falls in my portfolio. But and I happen to be the state's lead for this endeavor. We can go to the next slide. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on some of these slides that you already know. A lot of these slides I included because I took them on a roadshow, which helped us be successful. So I wanted you guys to see what we are sharing with everybody else. But we all know on this call that money is one of the key barriers to entry into this teaching profession, right? Paying for all the things from tuition, textbooks, your student teaching practicum is not only unpaid, but normally you're paying to work because it's a credit bearing class. So we normally I've been talking to folks about this barrier of entry into teaching. Next slide. And so we have looked at registered apprenticeships as a potential solution here in Maryland. And so we talked about lessons learned with Arizona just now, and that's exactly what we did. We actually spent about 6 to 7 months just studying. Like we didn't stand anything up, we didn't contact anybody to stand it up, but rather we spent lots and lots of time studying. We looked at peer-reviewed studies, all sorts of items put out from professional orgs and nonprofits. Of course, we went to NASDAQ last year and we went to Austin for the registered apprenticeship gathering that we all had there, and that was phenomenal. We've worked with US and Maryland Labor. We've worked with the Maryland Higher Ed Commission, which is our sister agency that handles specifically higher ed issues. Lots and lots of one-on-one meetings with you all or people like you in other states. Of course, we've attended all sorts of monthly working group meetings to include the NCGYO ones. And after all of that, in March of 2025, we released some guidelines based on all these lessons learned. So not based from lived experiences from us, but based on everything we heard, we put out non-regulatory guidelines across the state to say, hey, if you're going to stand up a registered apprenticeship for teachers, here are the things you should consider. And there's about 14 or 15 considerations. And it was a lot of the stuff that when we asked all of you, what would you have done differently? Right? If you could go back in time, what would you have done? And so it was a lot of the lessons learned there we put out in guidelines. I'm happy to send them out to the crew here as well. But when we put those guidelines out and we looked at them, we realized that we would probably be best postured as a state education agency to be the sponsor of a teacher apprenticeship. And so in June, I ended up finding myself in front of Governor Moore at his cabinet meeting, alone and unafraid. I was the only person from our State Department of Ed there. And it was like Shark Tank. Essentially, he was looking for ideas of what he could pitch when he is on the re-election trail right now, up into 2026. And we all had 10 minutes to pitch our ideas. And when they got to me near the end, they said, you have 60 seconds because everyone else took over time. And I said, I have 60 seconds. They said 58. Right. And so at that point, we were able to pitch to him. And his only question to us was, how soon can I champion this endeavor? Right. Because it touches all Marylanders. And so I told him, hey, we want to register in January. This was in June. And he goes, cool, September sounds great. And I said, but I said January. He's like, no, but we're good with September, right? And my friends from labor spoke up and said, September sounds wonderful. So we hit the road. So if we can go to the next slide. And so this last summer, we went on a statewide roadshow and a recruitment tour to recruit LEAs, their unions, because we are a huge union state, as well as EPPs to come into this program. And what we said was that we would sponsor the program, and we really connected with close to 24 different entities across the state. Next slide. I included this slide. If you happen to go and you want to pitch a registered teacher apprenticeships to stakeholders like unions, LEAs, or EPPs, this PBS NewsHour that NCGYO sent me is fantastic. It's a PBS overview that they did on registered teacher apprenticeships. And yes, David is featured in there, but the really cool part is not only is he featured in there, but so are kind of any other stakeholder group you would be talking to. So there are superintendents of schools, there are college deans, there are teacher candidates who are apprentices, there are mentor teachers who all speak up. So who are, regardless of who you are talking to, they will be able to see themselves in this video, and it's a fantastic introduction to teacher apprenticeship. So I wanted to add this so that everyone had it. Next slide. So we would walk in a room to any of these stakeholders and say, hey, here's our idea. Here's our idea. Here's what we want to put together. We want to register an apprenticeship that's open to all Marylanders, ages 16 and up. We want it to be for all licensure areas, depending on what that school district needs. It's going to be a 4-year competency-based program, but if they come in with, education or experience in their background, it could be shorter, as you all are very well aware of. They got to be proficient in all OJT competencies, and they have to complete a Maryland approved educator preparation program. They also have to do 1 year, I'm sorry, 1 school year. So it's 9+ months of classroom employment in a Maryland school district. And that's a licensure requirement. They need at least 1 year of student teaching behind them. Next page. And so what we would show them, and you can hit forward one more time. It should do some. There you go. So what we basically told people is, depending on when you come in, if you're a high schooler, yeah, this is probably a 4-year program for you. If you're a paraprofessional with an associate's degree, it's probably going to be about a 2-year program. But the point was, we were getting all sorts of questions of, when are you standing up an apprenticeship for paraprofessionals? When are you standing one up for high schoolers? What about career changers? And we said, the licensure requirements at the end of this road are the same for everybody. So let's just build one apprenticeship. And just like Arizona just presented, regardless of where you are in life, you can come on, you can go on an on-ramp, and your on-ramp just may be a little bit further ahead than other people's, is really all it is. Next slide. So we talked, I'm not going to go over all these slides line by line. It's really the related instruction providers I want to really hone in on. But really what we did is we showed a number of slides like this one to show, hey, here's what we would do as a state Department of Education. And the whole point of a slide like this is to really show these school districts that we would take on a lot of the administrative lift as a sponsor. And what we discovered is that there were a lot of our school districts that were already planning to register their own apprenticeship, but they weren't going to pull the trigger because of the administrative tail that comes with being a sponsor. So once they heard that we would be willing to pick up the slack in these areas, a lot of them were on board, which was great. Next slide. We talked to them a bit about what their responsibilities are. Of course, they're going to hire them as employees, make sure there's progressive wage increases. One of the items that we wanted to really hone in on here is that they are not going to be teachers of record. That is some great advice that we got from all of you in a lot of our engagement. So ours are not teachers of record at all. Next slide. Our OJT competencies, we pulled them directly from the Danielson Framework for Teaching, because a lot of our LEAs already use that in their evaluation system. There's a ton of peer-reviewed evidence that shows that it can accurately measure teacher efficacy, and so that is exactly what we are using. Also, the fact that we can provide the rubrics and other implementation guides from Danielson for free was a game changer for us, so we really liked that. Next slide. Of course, apprentice pay, one of the things we did in our standards of apprenticeship is that salary amounts right there. Because we have unions with each of our LEAs, instead of determining what the salary amount was going to be for apprentices in this program, instead, our standards of apprenticeship point directly back to the collectively bargained agreement between the LEA and the union. And so what that means is we don't have to get involved at this level with pay. As long as they're getting pay and they're getting increases at the right times, we are good to go. Next slide. All right, so related instruction provider responsibility. So the main driver for us actually standing up a registered apprenticeship was to get people into the profession of teaching that otherwise couldn't afford it. But a great side benefit of that is this can really help us work with our institutes of higher ed, or our IHEs, to really reimagine the way that we're doing teacher preparation. And so we are only going to partner. So what we want is that if we go down to that third bullet there, we wanted to partner with schools that are embracing giving credit for prior learning and on-the-job training. We wanted our universities to minimize in-class obligations by substituting OJT wherever they could. We want them to flex their course offerings on shorter terms, online learning, weekend classes, night classes, test out options. The South Dakota dean who spoke at our annual conference this last February in Austin had had a great presentation about how his apprentices can test out of classes, and that was really great to hear. We want them to evaluate their tuition and fees, and we want to negotiate with them to not pay the market rate. And so what we said is that we will only partner with teacher prep programs that are modified for apprentices, because we view them as employees first, which is just a mindset shift that a lot of our universities don't have would need to make. Next slide. And so this slide, yeah, so what we told everybody is that when apprentices come on board, we can have them apply for all the publicly available funds that are out there. FAFSA, we have a teaching fellow scholarship here. They would have to exhaust tuition assistance if the LEA offered it. And then any university offered scholarships that are specific to teacher prep, they would have to utilize those as well, if they're offered to them. They can also utilize the GI Bill or any other methods of tuition assistance, but otherwise, we would subsidize remaining tuition and fees by pursuing grant funding and state funds. And we went in there saying, I don't have any right now. Like, I don't have any state funds earmarked for this. I don't have any grant funding earmarked for this. We have specific grants we can go after, but we haven't done it yet because we don't know if we have a program. It's also 2025. Who knows what federal agency is going to exist tomorrow, right? And if the grant funding is going to exist. So we really had to go in with no promises other than the fact that we would vigilantly pursue any grant funding or state funds that became available if this became a reality. And our goal would be 100% cost-free to participants. But we walked in the room saying we're not bringing any money to the table yet. Next slide. This right here was the slide. It was the slide where we could tell if our IHE was going to come on board or not. These first three bullets exist today, irrespective of apprenticeships or not. So in Maryland today, colleges and universities are authorized to award credit for practica or clinical experiences in these following ways. So if it's an associate's degree, up to 30 hours right now of 60 can be given for practica or clinical experiences. And if it's a bachelor's, up to 45. And so we said, okay, we talked to the Department of Labor here in Maryland, which is our state apprenticeship agency. And we said, what if we did like instead of a 4-year program, we worked it down to 3, if we did OJT, credit for OJT. And they said, you'd be like one of the gold standards in the nation. So we said, all right, challenge accepted. So we went to every IHE. We showed them this slide up here. We said, so this exists today. Today you can provide up to 45 credits for practica or clinical experience. So if you want to be a provider of related instruction for us, you will have to give them at least 24 credit hours for the work they're doing on the job. Or if you are a fully online program, like from your first class in college all the way to the end, you can do 10 credits of OJT. And the university has to have a written articulation agreement with any of our community colleges that are participating. We didn't promise any money, and some of our IHEs said, well, these are large programmatic changes for us. How many students can you guarantee us? And we said, oh, that's easy, 0. Right? Like I can't promise you people for your normal programs, right? And so it's up to the IHE to build a great program that will draw people to it. And so this slide right here, we could tell by the body language immediately if the IHE was going to be on board or not. And what this resulted in, all of this was a coalition of the willing. So if you can go to the next slide, we ultimately ended up registering September 9th, and we got 2 LEAs, Caroline County and Washington County Public Schools, 3 community colleges, and 3 universities. One of our community colleges has a fully online program. One of our universities, Notre Dame of Maryland, has a fully online program, and Salisbury has told us that they will create fully online sections just for apprentices. There is not one school on here that asked us about money. There's not one school on here that asked us about how many students can we provide them. Every single name you see on this from these organizations is the coalition of the willing. These are people who are like, game on. Like we understand that change is needed in teacher prep. Some of these have young deans who are trying to make their name. Some of these are community colleges who just want to invest more in the community. And so with this, we are all going to meet in about half an hour and have our first meeting together. It's been very interesting because since we have registered with this crew and we started to move forward, I think that FOMO that has been mentioned in these meetings before is starting to come out, because now I've had 6 other meetings with other LEAs and I have 6 more on the books, right? So we're talking over half of our school districts will have met with me at this point. And the only hang up at this point, and I don't even want to say a hang up, But the only part that's kind of slowing down the process is, of course, that the union needs to speak with the LEA and make sure that they're all in agreement, right? Rightfully so. And so, other than that, though, most of our LEAs are on board. Our colleges and universities are also on board. And it was very interesting that when I met with them and I said, here's what we need. You have to have at least 24 semester hours. And we wrote those into our standards, by the way, that you have to give at least 24 semester hours. A lot of them tried to, not a lot, but some would try to kind of bargain. Well, could we do this? Could we do that? We said no. And we didn't even bargain. And we said, you know what? This probably isn't the program for you, university. Like, this is just probably not it. And so when you're ready to change, please come back. And once you have 24 hours that you get for on the job training and you have written articulation agreements, you can come right on board. And so it's been interesting because now the governor is championing this. Now there are all sorts of press releases going out, right? But we've promised nothing. Like, I promised $0 and 0 students, and yet my inbox is flooded with in-state and out-of-state colleges and universities who want to jump on board, right? So there is a lot to be said about doing a state level initiative that just has momentum just because of the level that it's at and the attention that it's getting, right? And so I think oftentimes, rightfully so, we look at money and students as a way to entice EPPs to come on board, and I think that works a lot of the time. We didn't have that, and I think us kind of keeping everybody in an arm's length and staying, being very firm with our boundaries was the correct move for us. So next slide. Yeah, and I'm just about done. Yep. So Governor Moore, he's ready to champion this soonest. We are now consulting with NCGYO on this and a number of other GYO initiatives. So we're super thankful to have them. We are actively recruiting LEAs, and we are absolutely expecting a ton to sign on because we have a new grant opportunity that's about to hit the streets here in a few weeks, which is going to incentivize folks to become a part of this statewide initiative. So we're really happy about that. And again, our first apprenticeship and training committee meeting is in about 18 minutes. So with that, I think it's just my contact information on the next slide. You are more than welcome to reach out to me for anything you need. I'm more than welcome, or more than willing to update you all in a year to let you know how this is going. And that is it. So thank you so much. And thank you, Carla and team, for the time and the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Jason. And I'm sure we will be inviting you back in another year because I expect to hear great progress in the next year. So we'll pause for a moment for any questions. Please type your questions in the Q&A. We do have one. Jason, did the IHEs embrace a competency-based education approach for the preparation of educators?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a great question. So the answer is yes and no, right? So the ones that you saw on that slide did, right? And the ones that were not on that slide did not. The other part too is an interesting conversation because when we talked about competency-based learning and on-the-job learning, we would get a lot of questions of like, how are you going to make that work? Like, how are you going to track it? And who are these people that observe them during the day? But my answer back was, what do you do now? Like, what do you do today? Like, you have clinical experiences and practicum right now, right? So how do those work today? Who's observing them today? All we need to do is, you would take out some other classwork and you would teach that on the job, right? And then evaluate it the same way you do today. So it was a very interesting conversation. I don't come from the world of higher ed or public schools. I was in the Air Force before. And so to me, I can look at this like an objective third party, right? And just say, well, how is this any different than what you're already doing? And so that's how we were able to work around it. Just for your edification, Salisbury University, for example, came out of the gate and said, well, we already offer 29 credits for OJT, and we can probably do about 10 to 12 more because of this apprenticeship program. So we're getting to the point where potentially 25% of someone's degree is going to just be on the job learning. And we would love to make that as high as it can go from a regulatory standpoint here in Maryland. So the ideal would be 45 credits. If they can get 45 credits for OJT, that's the max they're allowed to give, and we would love that. So but no, we didn't crack the code. Not everyone is signed up for this. You see 6 colleges there, and we probably have 10 times as many across the state easily, right? So there's more to go. But we are holding fast right now, and we aren't bending that entrance requirement for anybody. And I think it's going to result in our EPPs really looking at how they do things. I will tell you that some just were not going to flex at all, but there were others who really took a moment to breathe and say, I think we're kind of behind the times. Like, I think that we need to flex and do some online learning and do some credit for prior experience and all these different things, right? And so, so we really liked seeing that it's at least a light bulb moment, if nothing else. So even if you don't sign up with us, is this getting you to look at your programs and modify them to best meet the needs of apprentices that are, in a way that's compliant, sustainable, and feasible? We hope so, right? Because ultimately we want what does David always say, right? You want these kids to get not only the teachers they need, but deserve, right? And this is a way to make that a reality. So we're super excited about this. We're happy to give updates whenever we can. And I hope that answers your question. I know that was a long answer, but that's my answer I
Thank
got.
thank you, Jason. We'll pause for any additional questions for Grant, Ryan, or Jason as we come to the end of our webinar. Please pop anything in the Q&A. While we are checking to see if there are any additional questions, I will go ahead and remind you that we will have our third annual national convening on registered apprenticeships and teaching, National Center for Grow Your Own, in partnership with NASTAC on January 28th through the 30th. So those of us who are on the East Coast or the Northeast who want to go down south in the middle of winter, let's plan to meet together in New Orleans. This conference is all registered apprenticeships, so you're going to be able to engage with state leaders, labor leaders, leaders from across the nation who are doing this work, boots on the ground, jam-packed with good information you can take back and apply to your own context and your own journey. So if we go back to that reflection at the beginning when we're thinking about where we are on this journey, as Jason said, we'll come back a year from now, and I have a feeling that all of us will have moved forward on that continuum toward having fully sustained, fully stood up registered apprenticeship programs. Truly appreciate Grant, Jason, Ryan for giving us your time, your expertise. Thank you to those of you who are participating for giving of your time, giving us an hour today to continue to do this work that we believe is so important to the future of our children. As Jason said, and as our founder David always says, we want to make sure that that children get the teachers they need and the teachers that they deserve. And we believe that registered apprenticeship is one strong way that we can strengthen those pipelines in our states. So thank you. Have a great afternoon and come back and see us in January for our next webinar. Bye-bye.